I'm your co-host, Kenny Bhullar.
I'ma clap the trappers, cause y'all in the for them actors.
Welcome on the Second Floor Podcast.
I've been rolling around with all my goons and all my savages. I just want the
We would have dreamt of something like this, and here it is.
Ray Ray with the heaters, got the track sounding immaculate.
Looking kinda dapper, but it be chillin', this don't matter about my business, so I spit.
What's going on, y'all? It's Qashus back on the Second Floor Podcast with my boy Khurram Sultan, Kenny Bhullar. We're back at it. This is another episode of Current Events. So what we're going to talk about today are a couple different topics. Number one, we got the London Marathon. We got cloud seeding, number two. And number three, we're going to talk about how news platforms are being canceled in Canada. Stuff that we just found out just a few minutes before getting on the pod. So gentlemen, going right into the topics. Let's start with the London Marathon. Kenny, let's discuss it.
Let's get it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this topic was pretty noteworthy to talk about for many reasons. You know, with myself being a gym owner, I find looking at certain topics out there that are fitness related are pretty relevant to what I do. And also, I've ran one or two marathons in the past, and it's always fun to kind of look and see, you know, to be honest, like what my time was like compared to people who are like doing this pretty much for a living and doing this to get into the Olympics. And let me just say, they knock my time out of the park. Like I'm nowhere near where these incredible athletes are at. But you know, it was cool. The all-time female record got broken for the shortest time it took to run a marathon. So I want to give a huge shout out to Paris Jepchirchir. She ended up breaking that record at 2 hours, 16 minutes, and 16 seconds. That is crazy. Like that is the best time to date that any female has ever had running 42.2 kilometers. Like that is very impressive. And when you compare that to mine, my first marathon was probably around like 5.5 hours.
Yeah, you did the full marathon?
Yeah. That was the, long story short, the day I was prepping to just run 30, and then me, Raj, and Mason were just like, what's another 12 kilometers? We just kept pushing through, right?
Hey man, that following week, I was like, yeah, Mom, I'll see you in 30 minutes. I'll be right back. Me and Danny started off on this so to be like a 5K run, and all of a sudden, Raj calls us like, you got anything later going on today? I was like, not exactly. And then before I even knew it, we ran half a marathon unplanned. But
that's
I
fun.
ran 16. I'll be honest. I mean, I wasn't expecting 16. I was thinking 5, but I ran 16 and I couldn't walk for a week. So that was my
no, but
milestone.
To do it in 2 hours,
it's crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
That's insane. And obviously, you need to train for something like that, right? I want people to realize, like right now, we are going into summertime. We are in running season. It is blossoming in different places that you're living in. Maybe not Dubai with the intense rainstorm that happened, and then the next day it was sunshine and rainbows. But wherever you are, maybe perhaps this is the year where you want to start running or you want to get back to it. So I wanted to just, relevant to this topic, talk about a little bit of myths that I feel like are associated with running long distances. And I want to talk about the do's and don'ts. I do want to say, and I want to clarify that this is something I could have Googled, and something in the past, even sometimes I do. And I'm like, I'll just Google it. But this time I'm like, I don't need to do that. Everyone can Google. I just want to talk about and riff about this from my own personal experiences, right? So I think one thing to be very clear about, whether it's running or lifting weights, is a lot of people will look at how much they ran in the past. It could be a year ago. It could be back when you were in college. And I've heard people say, yeah, I ran a half marathon before. And what do? They go try and run a half marathon right away. Some people will be guilty of even when lifting weights. They'll be like, yeah, you know what? My PR I once one time did was like 4 plates a side. Rack it up. Let's do it. And like without building up to that, you just jump straight to your PR. And I feel like if you're maybe guilty of having that same mentality, please don't do it. You will obviously risk injuring yourself pretty badly, and you need to just start from scratch, right? Like you want to run half a marathon, start with 2 kilometers. Start with a walk. There's that program Couch to 5K. Like start something easy, because I know a lot of people can be guilty of just trying to like track their progress from their last number they've done. So I think that's something that's just, I don't think it's too obvious. I just think it's something that's a good reminder for people to know. And another thing that I think is pretty cool is the runner's high. This is something that a lot of people will talk about, and if you haven't ran, you're just thinking, well, what the fuck's a runner's high, right? I've experienced it. I think it's pretty cool, right? You feel euphoric, you feel like you're on cloud nine, like you get that sense of being in flow state, right? Now, what I want to talk about is this: is the runner's high doesn't last every single run. You're gonna reach a point where, from my experience, you just build a tolerance around it. So in order to, I feel like, keep something like that and keep chasing that feeling, is keep finding a way to challenge yourself, right? It's like, okay, well, I'm noticing I'm running 10Ks a lot. Well, now try and get to 10K in a shorter time, or try and get yourself to go from 10K to 12.5 to then 15, right? So little things like that for you to still chase that quote unquote high. I remember the first time I was feeling it, I was, and being in Edmonton, we have a lot of ravines around us. So I remember I was actually cruising through a ravine, and the whole time, as I kept looking back, it just felt like there were other people running with me, and I was running alone that day. But like, it's really unique. Like, music sounds better. You don't feel like you're alone. Like, it's hard to describe. Right? I don't know if you guys ever felt that.
You know, I've heard like studies talking about like people who are depressed, if they are to go for a walk, and half of it, from what I've understood, is like your depth perception. When you're inside, your eyes are only focusing so far ahead, right? They don't have the capability of like observing and taking in your different sensations to your retina. So whenever I was outside, it felt like I was on a runner's high that much more. Whereas like I wouldn't get that in the basement if I'm on the treadmill. But if I'm outside and my eyes are focusing in and out of crazy amounts of depth, taking in the beauty of Edmonton in the summertime, I think that like I've I felt it, and I think outside especially, it makes a huge difference. So if you're a runner trying to prep, I remember when we did it, we did the half marathon, not even a full one, but it was in -40, unprepped, and it just turned into its own thing. And I actually remember there's still light out, and by the time it finished up, I had to pick up something from Shoppers Drug Mart. So I had the last kilometer. Danny will remember this still. We were both kind of like gas. I'm like, I saw the time. I was like, oh shit, I gotta go pick up this stuff from Shoppers, or I'm gonna be in trouble. So I just started booking it. But yeah, outside definitely, like the feeling of just being outside. One thing I gotta add though, in terms of a tip that I didn't really know, because I felt like my legs were conditioned enough, but my ankles, the small joints, the bolts that hold the engine together, that could definitely use a little bit more work. And I noticed it more the more I ran, versus like my legs didn't feel it as much. In fact, I think we ran another 10 shortly after that Wednesday, and this was on a Sunday. I was like, I have no idea how I was doing this, but knees over toes. That's what I gotta say.
Well, that's exactly it, man. Is I feel like when anyone is doing anything, they try and make, like, let's say running a marathon, their only physical activity, and they neglect the mobility they need to do. They neglect the strength they need to do. Like, to Karam's point, when you're running those long distances, you're doing the same repetitive motion on your knees and on your ankles every literal step of the way. And the wear and tear that gets caused is, man, it's actually frightening. Like, I remember even when I did, I'll never forget it, the 16-kilometer prep I needed to do for my marathon, I could no longer walk. I'm not even exaggerating. Like, I was like, hey, like, I even remember like feeling like I needed to get picked up after hitting the 16K mark, right? So, I mean, that a good point to reference is like, if you are planning on doing long distance running, there's some do's and don'ts from my experience that I feel like is worth noting. Do have a strength program and a mobility program. Like, if you're going to be now running 3 to 5 times a week, okay, well, now you need to compensate that with some yoga, with some strength training. Like, you're still gonna have to squat, you're still gonna have to do lunges, you're still gonna need to build strength around these areas, and if you don't, you will feel like you're in more pain. Another big do would be running frequently, right? So especially in the beginning, if you're like, oh man, I can't imagine, like, right now I can hardly get to 5K. It's like, all right, well, run 2K every day, right? And now instead of tracking how many clicks you're getting per day, track it on a per week to week basis. So now, depending on like what your build up, let's say you're actually prepping 6 months out for a marathon. Well, each month you're going to increase your volume anywhere between 20 to 40% more, right? That is not a specific number. I'm literally throwing that out of my ass. So, don't quote me on that. But the idea here is to make sure that you are increasing the volume week over week, month over month, right? And there is going to be some times you're like, okay, listen to your body. This week, I'm not going to increase. I need a deload, right? Other things that you got to do is create a short run, a mid run, and a long run. Once again, that's on a per week basis, right? So I feel like those would be like the main do's. Now, the don'ts would be don't ignore your upper body training. I think this one is huge, and a lot of people don't realize. They're like, yeah, you run, it's all legs. It's not all legs, right? Like the amount of pumping you get from your arms and how much, from personal experience, you actually feel like the pull in your shoulders and your posture. How much your posture suffers when you run is crazy. It's like the same way I would like relate to a boxer when you're leaning forward. Like when you're running, you're leaning into it. So like you come out of the run looking and feeling like your back is completely rounded, right? So I think what's really important is people recognize that they have to do their pulls. They have to do their shoulder mobility and strengthening. And like how much that relates to actually becoming a better runner helps a lot, right? So I'm no running expert, but I think another thing that we need to highlight on this one is, don't ignore the pain. Listen to your body. If you were programmed today to do your long distance run, but you woke up and you feel like a bag of shit, maybe listen to your body. Maybe do your mobility program that you plan for yourself the next day and switch it up. So quick tips. If anyone out there has, let's say, any other tips in regards to becoming a better runner, if you guys, have anything to say about that based off your experience, then feel free to share. I am never doing a marathon again. I was just stoked to see the London Marathon.
Bro, it was honestly just the COVID. It was COVID that made us run marathons.
So
when
true,
there's nothing
man.
else to do.
So true.
But kudos to the people who actually are able to do that, like for many years, not just one, and willingly.
Oh, so much respect.
You psychopaths, that shit is crazy.
It's crazy, man. Yeah.
All right, I guess moving on to the next topic. Clouds are taking over Dubai. I actually used to be a resident of the United Arab Emirates back in the day. And when I was growing up, Pakistan, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, those are kind of like the stomping grounds. So when I saw the amount of rain that had fallen in Dubai, first off, I don't know if you guys are getting to the point where there's so much AI that you question the video that you're even seeing. Because when I first saw it, I was like, wait, is this real? Is this AI? Is this like a filter? Like, what's going on here? But when I realized it was real, it's crazy that there was that much rainfall because the structure of Dubai isn't built in a way that has like drainage, right? Like it's very, very, because rightfully so, there's not supposed to be that much rain. So the question is, do you think global warming did this? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah.
You think global warming did this?
This is the first time that Dubai has ever experienced a rainfall that consists of 8 years of rain in one day.
Okay, so let me tell you a stat. They get about 3 inches of rain per year. So they got 6 inches of rain in one night. So they got 2 years worth of rain in one night, right? And that's what caused like a lot of the flooding to happen. Now, what's also interesting is, do you know that they have a cloud seeding program in Dubai, where when the clouds are primed, they send airplanes up there with salt to enhance the size of the rain. And before, when people are saying, "Oh, this is all conspiracy," you guys are conspiracy theorists, the UAE came out and said that no, we did have planes flying 1 and 2 days before the flooding happened. Did you guys also happen to know that this? Do you feel like cloud seeding? Like, have you ever heard of cloud seeding before?
Can you give me an idea of what it is in a summary?
It's like a plane goes up, leaves a trail. There's 2 types. There's chemtrails, which are like the opposite of cloud seeding. There's stuff that brings rain and stuff that takes away rain. Right? So controlling weather in its own way. We're not trying to get canceled here either, though. But a apparently that's the technology, and they actually have somebody in UAE who actually explains that they spent $20 million on this and how they end up doing it, and how the rain droplets increase in size, right? Now, I thought this was newer too, because I've always been wondering what are those trails that are left in the sky, because jets aren't supposed to have that type of trail. But what's interesting is that when I realized, I thought cloud seeding was new, but it's actually been used in warfare.
Wow.
So that, I think, like the fact that it's been around, the fact that it happened, and there's another spot too who actually had major severe flooding, and they were asking their government and their people why was there cloud seeding done the days prior leading up to this. So it's very interesting to me, because I think we live in a time where global warming and the topics around global warming are so thrown at our face because we want to save the planet. But I think messing with Mother Nature, that has never experienced cloud seeding in its lifetime, shouldn't be done, to be honest, because you're messing with like the dynamics of how the world's been operating for God knows how long.
So is that just a reaction?
So essentially why they do it is because the climate's so dry there, right? And the demand for water is high.
They actually
And-
don't have enough rain.
Yeah, so the climate is so arid and humid that they need something to help with that. And cloud seeding technology is
So they just pump a little bit too much seed in that cloud, and then it was a
Salt.
bust that day. Is
Yeah.
that what essentially happened? So who's to blame? then?
they say that
'Cause that's-
that could be one of the contributing factors. It might not be the entire thing.
This could be a terrorist attack.
So
And
No,
no, but like if you
no,
think
but
about it, like no joke,
I think
this
how you
actually
frame it,
could be.
I don't
if
know
you think
if it'd
about
be
it.
there, but like it changes a lot of, like, based on how you use it, anything can be.
Well, I mean, sorry, active terrorism deeming that you are wanting to cause some serious harm to a given population of people. So, cloud seeding. Like, let's just make it seem like this was Mother Nature's fault.
Yeah.
And then it's like now, look. I wouldn't even thinking once that there's any person behind this operation.
Yeah.
But this could actually be, damn.
So
That's
I'll
It
read
makes you
something.
think twice about it.
I'll read something on Wikipedia that might be interesting. So cloud seeding missions require firing salts and silver iodide crystals into the atmosphere. The increased concentration of the matter or micropollutants increases the risk of respiratory illness. In 2017, a study was conducted before and after cloud seeding missions, which recorded an increase in this particulate matter, correlating to the months of active artificial rain. Researchers attribute this to leftover silver iodine crystals that were not dispersed in the rain during the cloud seeding months. And then it just goes into the environmental impact of cloud seeding and how it's like could affect people's health, but also the environment as well, because you're literally pumping silver iodine crystals into the
that's-
atmosphere.
And that's
It's like polluting the atmosphere, kind of, in a sense.
So I guess, like, where's the global warming really coming from? Because, and not to entirely switch the topics, but I think this all correlates to the world that we're living in. Because what the fuck is really going on? If you think about the carbon taxes that we're getting, 25% carbon tax in Canada, right? And that is to save the environment. When we have cloud seeding happening, chemtrails happening, so where's that, like, who's dictating what's right, what's wrong, who's paying that price? And if they're also contributing towards, like, having more pollutants in the air.
Is there any cloud seeding in Canada?
Bro, if you look at, like, I haven't fully looked into it, so I have nothing to say on it, but me, myself, my own personal opinion on this is yes. I see a lot of trails, and I always used to wonder, like, what the hell is, because remember we were talking about the drive back from Red Deer? I used to see a bunch of different trails of, like, so one day it just got me curious. I'm like, what is this, like, I see jets fly, and then the vapors just kind of, like, evaporate, right? It trails the plane, but it stays very close to the plane. And then I used to see some that would have trails that would be
Yeah,
from
you would
point
see
A
it.
all the way to point B, left through the sky,
Yeah.
and those don't disappear.
I was actually trying to think of, like, if I could find a company that can write something in the air like that. You should be seeing the
I
things
love
like-
you, Twinkle.
Yo, I'm not even lying. I'm trying to find it. I couldn't find it. All that was coming up was cloud seeding.
So I guess to move on to next topic, we pulled up. I love Valuetainment. I love Patrick Bet David, and actually Omid Qashus is the guy who put me on PBD. So ever since you've put me on, I've realized my news source isn't TV. And I want to ask you guys: watch TV for your news source, or where are you guys finding your news?
Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn. And Andrew Schultz. Like the
Yeah.
comedians are running my life. But they bring on people that actually are educated enough to talk about some of these things. So, and plus I live in my own bubble, man.
Yeah.
Like I know as I'm getting older, it's really important to stay relevant with the times and be aware of all this. And maybe this might contrast kind of what you go through because you look at all this stuff and I see how much it like I don't want to say scares you, but it frightens you for what the future looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And then for me, I'm like, how can I say I'm oblivious to it all.
Yeah.
Cause I'm just like, yo, man, I just trained today, did some jujitsu, listened to some of my comedians riff about what's going on in the world, and they always find a funny way around it, and that's like my life, and I'm okay with that, right?
Yeah, well, you know what I find really interesting, and this literally just happened. We pulled up Valuetainment, not gonna lie, just to see some current events that are kind of happening. Because I'm like, I want to know that if we just bang out these topics, what's an extra topic that just might be fun that I would like to talk about myself. And when we went on, there is no way to access Valuetainment anymore, and on Instagram, yeah. So when you go on to Valuetainment's page, it says people in Canada can't see this content. In response to Canadian government legislation, news content can't be viewed in Canada, which is wild. Because I felt like they brought on a ton of great political people, a ton of great knowledgeable people and credible people. So it's interesting that like somebody who I know, I get this, like, for example, imagine reading the paper and it's sourced and talking about so and so. But if you have the source there directly, that's what Valuetainment was doing. Is like you don't have to find so and so. We brought the guy to you guys, and I liked hearing it that way because I was like, there's no words kind of changed in within the streamline of like the message, right?
Yeah, there's something to say about the long form content of hearing someone out for longer than 2 to 5 minutes, especially when it's something that is newsworthy right now, and you get to kind of hear perspective around it, right? Like, there's a small example, right? The Times, I think it was, actually put out an article on Andrew Huberman being like pretty much convicted of having 6 different relationships, upwards of.
Oh, I saw that.
And
I was
the
like, that's
thing,
a bad man.
the thing was about that though is here is somebody who you would obviously be surprised in hearing that that's happening,
Mm-hmm.
but then what the news source actually hid and let out was the person that got interviewed is actually being convicted of fraud and convicted of a lot of other, let's just say, from what I know, just similar things that can make this story really falsified. And why I'm bringing this up to this topic is people will read something from a trusted news source.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is about journalism and the thing is about any source of publication is they get a certain amount of time putting that out. Like it's maybe going to grab 2 to 10 minutes of your attention. Now, to be fair, is 2 to 10 minutes of your attention a full story of something? It's not. So imagine all the things that are within that story, what is also left out of it.
Yeah.
And that's what I started thinking recently. And to the point of having someone like PBD, you know, he's having hour, 2 hour, 3 hour conversations. Like there is mostly not a beat being skipped on the information that you should be getting out of a storyline. Now, subject to, let's just say, attention span being one thing, is, man, like when you hear that and recognize for a second that some stories can be pretty falsified, fabricated, can only be telling you, even if it's true, what you should know about it. Now tie in human behavior and recognize how much someone is just creating their own false narrative about somebody. I can guarantee you so many people probably heard that about Huberman immediately without even wanting to know his side of the story. And I'm not saying I'm for having 6 different people in your life. Like, at the end of the day, yes, I think that's wrong. But to not maybe have all the proof in the world and look at someone like Huberman and be like, oh, okay, I read that on the Times. I maybe read just the title and the first 2 paragraphs. I didn't even finish it. Screw this guy.
Well, even we talk about Jay Shetty. I don't know if you guys heard about Jay Shetty last couple of months as well, where they're saying that he's not an actual coach. He didn't go to India. This whole story is how he went to India and became a monk, because he has a whole book about him going and being a monk and coming back and those teachings and values. And so, again, I don't know the truth or not the truth, but I think what I appreciate about a platform like Valuetainment is that it's unfiltered, right? It's unfiltered, and it's also bringing on individuals that normally a CNN, a BBC, these sort of trusted platforms, if you will, won't bring on. And if they do bring on, then the stories are maneuvered and presented in a way. They might have, and same thing with Hassan Minhaj, the interview that he had with the New York Times. The journalist took that story, that interview, she took bits and pieces of what he said and fabricated a different story and said, oh yeah, all of what Hassan Minhaj says in his stand-ups are all fake and false stories. And then Hassan had to make a response video that was, I think, 10 or 20 minutes long, and he had to go through each one of the lines and say, and then bring up, like, he brought up like email screenshots and text message screenshots just to prove that some of the stories, if not all the stories, are actually real. But the New York Times journalist took that interview she had with Hassan Minhaj and presented it in a way that made Hassan's reputation look bad. And everyone's like, oh wow, look at this comedian talking about all these stories and you know, becoming famous and whatnot, and it's all fake. So I think, again, going back to it, these sort of platforms that are now getting hidden and blocked, it just shows that the power within, and people gravitate towards that. Us 3 in this room and other individuals, we gravitate to the Andrew Schultzes, the Joe Rogans, the PBDs. Why? Because it's unfiltered, it's uncensored, and it's raw. He's sitting across a guy like Andrew Tate, who a lot of people wouldn't be able to stand and wouldn't even want to be in that room with. And he has a 4-hour conversation, if not multiple interviews, and he's sitting across from a room. And you don't know. Who knows? Andrew Tate could be this serial killer, misogynist, XYZ person, but he's able to sit across the room with this individual and have a conversation, and you can understand. And it's a long form piece of content, and you can actually listen and see, and you can make your own judgment after that. Whereas you can go on clips from BBC or you go on clips from these other platforms, and they take this 30-second piece and then they say, oh, Andrew Tate's like this. And then obviously that influences and impacts millions of people and what they think about this person.
Well, even the BBC, they interviewed Andrew Tate, I think after he got out of jail. And they said, yeah, we just want to hear your side of the story. We think that you're unfairly convicted and blah, 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 blah. And sweet talk their way through. His whole team was saying, no, don't do it. It's going to be a hit piece. They're just trying to get something and whatnot. So he invited them all in. He didn't tell them he had his own cameras recording. So when they put out a 16-minute video, he put out the full 35-minute video. So it showed like the duality and the layers. And it's so interesting because I think like we are, this podcast itself is in a time where we're not going to be, we're next in line, I personally think. So I would like to announce our outcoming to Rumble. Catch us at secondfloor/rumble.com. Rumble is free speech. So it's similar to, it's uncensored. You're able to put more content out there without, and you can subscribe.
Help this pod, support this pod. You know?
No, because I truly think here's the thing. We're talking about cloud seeding, news. We're talking about different events politically that are news. I also think like PBD just had the elections coming up this year, right? So he's going on Pierce Morgan recently. He's always on a whole bunch of different stations. But what's interesting is he has an audience that is very invested in the greater and betterment of America, right? So the viewers that are watching PBD could be influenced to vote a certain way because of PBD. And I think because of that reason, they got to take the man off. At least from our perspective, though, like that's probably not U.S., right? This is just Canada. But what is Canada turning into? Like we were talking about this recently, where is Trudeau good for Canada? I think this is like by far he is. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna I'm gonna I'm gonna I'm gonna pull the Andrew Tate. I would never kill myself.
Compilation of Khurram talking about how much he hates Trudeau in every single different episode.
No, but I think I think it's an interesting topic because, you know, the idea of censorship, right? What's good and what's bad? Who can post what platforms are allowed to post what? You know, it's very interesting, and the fact that you know, there's good. You could argue good and you can argue bad for the topic of censorship, right? The impact, the social impact, the all these different things. You know, I think recently actually that I saw online was that the bill was passed to ban TikTok in the U.S. And I think it's going to happen within the next.
And you know, like the counter argument to those people, to the people wanting it to stay, from what I've heard, is they're actually getting like imagine hearing the news, and then on TikTok actually seeing the exact location where people are living and getting your news and what you believe from that video. And they would rather you hear from the news, and that's the thought process behind the people who want to keep TikTok, is that they want to, just like we want to see PBD directly, they want to get the news directly from
CNN, all these huge channels were gone. Would you be in favor of that? What if they just got rid of news channels, kept the podcast, kept the free speech, and then people just figured out what was happening around the world through like just uncensored media?
I think that'll never happen because I think the people who
What if
control
though?
what if
Would it? Would we be better off without it entirely?
if there is freedom to expose anybody and everybody, then I think more people would be exposed, which would keep people in line a little bit better too. Who knows? I'm just saying if it was as the scenario, I think I could look at it from that. Obviously, there needs to be some form of legislation to keep it like governable, where you're not crossing boundaries of just going like it has to abide by law, but it should be free in terms of being able to speak about it. Being Q Filmz headquarters, we were talking about the $33 trillion that the U.S. is in debt for, right? Yet they keep on spending money elsewhere and being in proxy wars that maybe they have no interest in being in. That's what Vivek was saying, is I want to take care of America first and then deal with everything else after, because I'm in the interest of being a great American leader, not a global world leader. I think what's interesting is the U.S. has gone to the point where they allow, like I was telling Zane, I was like, bro, you look Mexican enough to me. Go to Mexico, cross the border to U.S. They'll give you $5,000 a month. They'll even allow you to go find an abandoned home, go break into it, and take it over.
Imagine doing that. Just going through, being like,
And
my
then
name
look,
is Rico Juan Hernandez,
Sultan.
and then and you just cross the border and just say, I don't got any documents on me.
Bro, like
5K.
imagine being an American that goes to college, university. The average American comes out with $103,000 in debt,
Yeah.
and then they have to pay it off by working a job in which the jobs aren't even favoring them. They don't have the benefits, and this is nothing against like Mexican people. I actually love Mexican people.
I love that.
No,
I always love
like
that.
I think that
Juan
I am Mexican too.
Juan Sultan.
Juan Sultan's crazy. You gotta
We're
name your
keeping
kid
that.
that. You gotta name your kid
We're keeping that.
Yeah.
We're keeping
Holy.
that. No, but I think like Americans, from what I've heard, and I've seen this, even a guy like LeBron who lives in a prime spot. Imagine LeBron's house, right? 2 doors down, or on the same block, there's people who are who've broken into the home, taken it over, and now they are leasers of the home. There's people who go on vacation. Imagine leaving for vacation, and when you come back, these motherfuckers are living in your house, and you got nothing to do with it because the government favors them to do so. You're telling me that is not of worry, but we'll send, I think even today or just yesterday, $95 billion to be more in the Israel, I think Taiwan, I can't remember the second one, but $95 billion, yeah, like $95 billion sent again. And this is continuous over and over again. There's always,
And what are they getting back in return?
brother,
Like America gives that, and it's like so.
this is this is the conversation that we actually will say for Rumble, because there's certain things that I just choose not to even bring up from what I've read, and then again, I'm not as knowledgeable as I want to be, but I look into things and I like having conversations about them unfiltered. But even that's the crazy part. I can't even do that shit here, right? It's like we're gonna be in a point where
Trudeau Saab's gonna be like, Juan Sultan, cancel the show! And then next thing you know, we have no more ITD athletics on Instagram. We have nowhere. It's K Sultan 10. It's all done.
Juan Sultan.
Content can't be showcased.
Your private page, Oakwaid, is just the only thing we have. Because everything you posted is okay on there.
Fucking username now
Oh.
because you keep shouting it out on social media.
No one needs to know about
No,
Oakwaid.
no.
He's gonna beep it out every time.
No, I'm changing it now, bro. You tagged Oakwaid every time.
So much.
I keep saying, "Can't take Qashus." This guy's putting Oakwaid on second floor.
That's a private. Holy man.
All right, y'all. Well, I think this was a dope conversation. If y'all like these current event conversations, topics, we're going to continue with this on a week-to-week basis. Appreciate y'all. Thank you. Subscribe to our YouTube channel because we are going to bring them fire videos out. We got Adriel on scene. Shout out to Adriel. Q Films, ITD, Brave. You know, those are our companies. But appreciate y'all. Thank you. We'll see you in the next. You'll see Juan Sultan in the next.
Rom
And
coming with a
amigo
Mucci.
Adriel.
And look out for us on Rumble.